Welcome to Threads of Truth, where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we're stepping into a case that has baffled investigators and haunted a family for well over a decade now: the vanishing of Andrew Gosden. Just imagine a perfectly normal Friday morning. It's September 2007 in the pretty quiet town of Doncaster, UK. Andrew, he's a 14-year-old boy, seemingly leaves his home for school like any other day. But the day unfolds in a way no one could have possibly predicted. Instead of arriving at class, Andrew makes a series of incredibly unusual choices, almost contradictory, really. He withdraws his entire life savings, a specific sum, £200 from his bank account. Then he buys a one-way train ticket. A one-way ticket, and this is critical, to London. His last confirmed image is captured on CCTV, just a fleeting glimpse of him walking out of the bustling King's Cross station. And after that moment, just profound and absolute silence descends. He has never been seen or heard from again.
It truly is a profound mystery. It's consistently ranked among the UK's most perplexing missing persons cases. The disappearance of Andrew Gosden, it fundamentally challenges so many of our assumptions about safety, predictability, the very fabric of everyday life. We're left asking how. How can a seemingly well-adjusted teenager with no apparent warning, no obvious motive, just vanish? Vanish without a trace into the anonymity of a major city like London? What chilling, often heartbreaking possibilities does such a complete vanishing act leave behind? For his family, for the community. Our goal today as we explore this is to meticulously look at the documented timeline of that day, to really dissect the highly unusual, honestly baffling decisions Andrew made, and to thoughtfully explore the various theories that have emerged over the past, decade and more now. We need to pull apart these complex threads of evidence. It's become a very tangled web of unknowns.
Okay, let's really try to unpack this. This case absolutely demands thoroughness. To truly grasp the enigma of Andrew's disappearance, we first need to understand who Andrew Gosden was. Our sources, and these include detailed police reports, lots of family interviews, they paint a remarkably consistent picture. He was a 14-year-old boy from Doncaster, South Yorkshire, born July 10, 1993. And he wasn't just any teenager. He was, by all accounts, exceptionally bright. Showed remarkable academic ability, excelled consistently in school. His teachers, his family, they all saw him as a high achiever. Someone who approached studies with this quiet diligence, which makes everything that happened later just so puzzling. He wasn't the kind of kid you typically think would just disappear suddenly without explanation.
Precisely. That consistent portrayal of Andrew is absolutely vital here. He was known for being introverted, yes, but not to an extent that suggested social isolation or some kind of deep emotional distress. His introversion is seen more like a preference for quiet activities rather than, a reluctance to engage with people. He had a close-knit family, demonstrably stable. His parents, Kevin and Linda, his older sister, Charlotte, they describe a loving, supportive home, no significant conflict, no signs of rebellion. His interests, too, were pretty typical for a boy his age back then. A keen interest in metal music bands like Slipknot, apparently, and an avid passion for video games. Especially in this PlayStation 2. He liked anime, reading fantasy novels. It all paints his picture of a well-rounded, if maybe a bit reserved, young man.
And it's this background, right? This stable, seemingly contented kid that makes his family's perspective so utterly central to understanding the mystery.
Absolutely. The family's description of Andrew is emphatically not rebellious. Almost to a fault, they've said. Yeah, it just stands in such stark contrast to the dramatic actions he took that day. This deep inconsistency between his known personality and his behavior on September 14, 2007, that's what elevates this. It's not just a simple runaway case. It's a profound, enduring enigma. It immediately makes you consider other explanations, things beyond typical teenage defiance. It raises urgent questions about, external influences, maybe unforeseen circumstances, or perhaps some sudden, deeply private shift in his internal world that nobody around him picked up on. The lack of any warning signs in his behavior leading up to that day, that's a point the family has consistently emphasized, and it's a critical thread we have to follow.
Okay, so let's meticulously trace the events of that day, Friday, September 14th, 2007. It began, on the surface anyway, just like any other school day for Andrew, but underneath that ordinary veneer, a hidden plan was apparently already in motion.
Indeed. The warning's deception, it started subtly, a quiet deviation from the normal rhythm of the week. Andrew left his home in Westfield, Doncaster. Ostensibly, he was heading to his secondary school, Anslow Gate. This was his normal routine, completely established. Yet it was subtly, but fundamentally, altered. Instead of walking the usual route to class, his first stop was a local bank. There, Andrew carried out a very deliberate financial transaction. He withdrew £200 from his bank account. Our sources explicitly state this wasn't just pocket money. His family called it his life savings. That detail is crucial. It speaks to a level of premeditation, doesn't it? A clear intent behind his actions, not just some spontaneous spur-of-the-moment thing. For a 14-year-old in 2007, £200 was a significant sum. Probably saves up from birthdays, chores, small gift maybe. It really suggests he was funding a specific secret plan, something that needed a fair bit of cash.
And that money was clearly for travel. He bought a one-way train ticket straight to London. That one-way aspect, it's a chilling detail, isn't it? It implies zero immediate intent to return.
It's paramount. Absolutely. Buying a single one-way ticket to London from Doncaster that's about a 2-hour journey, it directly contradicts the idea of just a day trip, or even a temporary absence with a planned return. It signifies a journey with no clear endpoint back in Doncaster, potentially signaling a desire to, sever ties, or embark on some new indefinite phase. But what's even more unusual, given this seemingly deliberate decision to travel and his apparent intent to disappear, is what he was wearing. Andrew traveled in his full school uniform.
Right, the uniform, that's so strange.
It's highly conspicuous. It seems completely out of place for someone maybe running away or starting some secret journey where you want to blend in, right?
Yeah.
It made him incredibly easy to spot, a fact that has perplexed investigators and, armchair detectives ever since. Why would someone trying to vanish make themselves so visible? It's one of the enduring paradoxes here.
And then there's the truly baffling detail, almost counterintuitive, what he deliberately left behind. His wallet, his keys, his coat. Essential items for anyone planning to be away for any length of time. What does leaving those things suggest about his mindset, maybe the spontaneity, or perhaps something darker?
This is undoubtedly one of the most perplexing aspects. It just adds layers of complexity to any theory you try to form. Leaving his wallet, house keys, coat. It suggests a few critical possibilities. Each one just deepens the mystery of what he intended. Firstly, it could point to extreme haste, a decision made so suddenly, or maybe under such duress, that he just forgot these vital things in his rush. That aligns a bit with the idea of a sudden impulse, but it kind of contradicts the premeditated act of withdrawing his life savings.
Doesn't quite fit together.
No. Secondly, it could imply he expected to get these things when he arrived in London. Maybe he thought he was meeting someone who'd provide lodging essentials, maybe even a new identity, making his old stuff unnecessary. This possibility really fuels those online influence or grooming theories, where some third party might be orchestrating his arrival and, his subsequent care. And thirdly, most chillingly, and this is widely discussed, it could represent a deliberate, almost symbolic, severing of his past identity. By leaving behind the tools for his old life, access to home, ID, protection from the weather, he might have been signaling a complete break.
Wow.
Yeah. This act profoundly complicates a simple running away idea. It suggests a far more complex, potentially sinister narrative behind his disappearance. Makes you ask, was he shedding his old self, or was someone else maybe compelling him to do it?
So he gets to London, King's Cross. What's the last confirmed verifiable visual we have of Andrew?
The last verified visual is from CCTV footage, captured right there at King's Cross Station in London. This footage, critically, it shows him leaving the main concourse of the station. Around 11:25 a.m., this single image. A 14-year-old boy in a school uniform emerging into one of London's busiest transport hubs. That is the absolute end of his known trail. He's seen walking, looks like purposefully, away from the camera. After that, the thread of his movements just vanishes. No digital footprint, no physical footprint found. It's an image that really encapsulates the entire mystery. A moment of visibility, followed by total, utter disappearance.
And his parents, completely oblivious to all this unfolding hundreds of miles away, they were out for the day, only to return home and make a seemingly ordinary discovery that hinted something was profoundly wrong.
Yes, the discovery by his parents later that day is such a poignant detail. Returning home, they made a seemingly innocuous observation, but in hindsight, it became the first chilling sign that Andrew hadn't gone to school, that something was seriously amiss. His school uniform, which he should have been wearing, was found in the washing machine.
In the washing machine?
Yeah. This small, seemingly ordinary act, washing clothes, signaled a major deviation from the expected school day. And it was the initial catalyst that launched their desperate search for answers. It suggested a strange degree of normality in his actions at home, right before he truly vanished, which just further compounds the mystery.
And that search that followed was massive, wasn't it? A huge police investigation, national appeals, but fundamentally, no clear crime scene was ever identified.
Absolutely. Once his disappearance was realized and reported by his family, an immediate and genuinely massive search operation was launched. South Yorkshire police started extensive inquiries. They collaborated with the Metropolitan Police, obviously, given London was his last known location. However, investigators were, well, profoundly baffled by the absence of a clear crime scene. No signs of a struggle at home, no forced entry, nothing disturbed suggesting an abduction from his house. This lack of a physical crime scene made it incredibly difficult for police to even classify, let alone begin to understand what might have happened to him right after he left home. The fact he left personal belongings behind too, his mobile phone charger, his PSP, his wallet, keys coded, further suggested a sudden, unexpected disappearance. Not some carefully planned departure where you'd pack essentials. Despite nationwide appeals, intensive police work, huge media coverage, even age progression photos being released over the years, no confirmed sightings of Andrew have ever emerged. Not one. It's a void that's persisted for over 16 years now. Andrew's family, to their immense credit and, enduring heartbreak, they've been relentlessly active in the search, distributing flyers, maintaining websites, engaging with media, following every occasional reported lead. But tragically, none have ever led to a breakthrough. None have provided any concrete answers. Their tireless efforts really highlight the profound impact of ambiguous loss.
Our sources, mostly public police statements and news archives, they briefly mention Robert Craig Cox, a local construction worker. As a person of interest in the case, can you maybe elaborate on the significance of that, even if the specifics are limited?
Right, Robert Craig Cox. He was already serving a prison sentence for unrelated, serious sexual offenses against children committed in the time since Andrew vanished. He was indeed considered a person of interest. Now, our public sources are necessarily limited on the specifics of why he was a person of interest, or the outcome of that line of inquiry. That's often due to ongoing investigative sensitivities, legal restrictions. But his mention is still highly significant. In cold cases like this, the police meticulously review all available intelligence. They often look at individuals with a history of relevant offenses or people who might have been in the vicinity around the time of the disappearance. The very act of naming someone, even internally, as a person of interest in such a high-profile, unsolved case, indicates that detectives found something in his profile or his actions, his location maybe, that warranted a closer look, even if ultimately there wasn't enough evidence for charges related to Andrew. It demonstrates the sheer breadth and depth of avenues police have to explore, often including seemingly tangential connections in their desperate search for answers. And it really underscores the challenge of building a solid case without direct evidence.
So, with this profoundly baffling set of circumstances, a bright, stable teenager vanishes without a trace, leaves critical personal items behind, last seen in one of London's busiest spots. It's really no surprise that the public, particularly the online community, have developed so many theories over the years. What are the core theories that have emerged to explain Andrew's disappearance, and what do our sources tell us about how plausible they might be?
Well, the primary theories circulating around Andrew's vanishing are compelling, mainly because no single one perfectly explains all the inconsistencies and, crucially, that absolute silence. The first, and often the initial thought in cases of missing teenagers, is voluntary disappearance. The idea here is that Andrew might have meticulously planned to run away, maybe seeking to start a new life, or perhaps escaping perceived personal pressures. This could include things like academic stress, which, he certainly might have felt given he was a high achiever, or even identity issues he might have been grappling with privately, felt unable to discuss. Things like questioning his sexuality or gender identity, which were maybe less openly discussed in 2007 than they are today.
But his family, as we've talked about, they strongly and consistently rejected this idea. How do the counterarguments, the points raised in the sources, challenge this voluntary theory?
Precisely. The counterarguments are significant, and they're deeply rooted in the family's intimate knowledge of Andrew. They adamantly rejected the idea of him being a typical runaway. They point to his unrebellious nature, his stable home life, and crucially, that baffling choice to leave vital personal items, wallet, keys, coat behind. Running away effectively usually involves some level of preparation, some self-sufficiency plan. They emphasize he had no known reason to disappear, No arguments, no major signs of distress they saw, no forbidden relationships, no disciplinary issues at school or home. Furthermore, his complete and utter silence since that day, over 16 years now, without a single communication with family, friends, even old online contacts. It just doesn't support a new life scenario where eventually you'd expect an any contact to be found thriving somewhere. And the practical difficulties of surviving alone with no ID, no ongoing funds beyond that initial 200 pounds make a purely voluntary, independent, and sustained disappearance extremely difficult to reconcile with that total silence.
Right. So if it perhaps wasn't a purely voluntary departure, what about the possibility of external influence? Maybe through online contact, grooming. That became a much bigger concern around the late 2000s.
That leads directly into the second major theory: online influence or grooming. The premise here is that Andrew was lured to London by someone he contacted over the internet. Given his known interest in video games, online forums related to music, this theory gains traction. The complete and utter lack of communication with anyone since that day significantly intensifies the plausibility of some external influence or a prearranged meeting that went terribly wrong. In the mid-2000s, the dangers of online grooming were becoming more widely recognized, sure, but the tools and awareness for tracking it, preventing it, were less developed than they are now. If he was meeting someone he connected with online, that person could easily have had nefarious intentions. And Andrew, being somewhat introverted, maybe less street savvy, could have been particularly vulnerable. It's a common and terrifying concern in cases involving missing teenagers, especially those who might be more susceptible to online manipulation.
And then there's the darker, more direct possibility: actual criminal involvement or outright abduction once he arrived in London, a huge city offering both opportunity and, well, anonymity.
That's the third significant theory: criminal involvement or abduction after arrival. The idea here is that Andrew could have been abducted, exploited, or harmed very shortly after leaving King's Cross Station. Given that he vanished without a trace right after exiting the station, and the fact he left his personal belongings behind suggesting he wasn't really prepared for long-term self-sufficiency, this theory carries significant weight for many people. The bustling, anonymous environment of a major train station in a massive city like London, unfortunately, it presents opportunities for these scenarios. A determined predator could potentially spot a lone teenager, especially one in a noticeable uniform, and lure them away in the general chaos. The lack of any subsequent trace, no phone calls, no financial activity, no confirmed sightings at all points towards a highly effective concealment, which is often indicative of foul play. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That he might have just encountered the wrong person at the wrong time.
And finally, there is a theory that always has to be considered in these situations, even if it's often hard to prove: accidental death.
The last major theory is indeed accidental death. The premise is that some unreported accident happened after he got to London. This could range from, say, a tragic fall somewhere obscure, maybe being hit by a vehicle and not being immediately identified, or even an accidental drowning in the Thames or canals. While it's always a possibility in such a vast urban environment, the sheer lack of any trace or discovery over such a long period makes this less immediately compelling than other theories for many. Unless, of course, a body was deliberately concealed or was lost in a way that genuinely defied discovery. It's incredibly difficult to imagine no evidence turning up, no body, no personal effects, no hospital records. After so many years, especially with the extensive search efforts and the ongoing public attention on this specific case, the logistics of a completely unrecoverable accidental death are challenging to reconcile with the continuous public and police interest.
It's incredible and really unsettling how many possibilities exist, yet none seem to quite fit perfectly or give us a definitive answer. Why do you think this particular case, maybe above others, has continued to endure so powerfully in the public memory for so long? What is it that makes it stick with us?
Well, this case endures for several powerful, almost archetypal reasons, I think. Firstly, it's that sheer, complete vanishing act we've talked about. The absence of a clear motive, the chilling lack of a body, the total stop in communication. It all contributes to this enduring mystery. There's just no closure, no easy explanation for anyone. It defies rational understanding, and that leaves an open wound, Secondly, as you touched on earlier, is that fundamental, deeply unsettling inconsistency between Andrew's known character and his actions that day. He was this brilliant, introverted, seemingly well-adjusted student, close family, supportive home. His actions withdrawing savings, one-way ticket, leaving essentials, then total silence were so profoundly out of character. They challenge our basic understanding of human behavior, predictability. The mystery isn't really about Andrew being some troubled teen whose disappearance was sadly predictable. It's about the inexplicable circumstances surrounding a seemingly stable individual just disappearing from what seemed like a safe environment. It forces us to confront the terrifying fragility of certainty and security.
It really makes you wonder how similar cases where there's just such a profound lack of explanation become so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness.
Exactly. While our sources don't draw direct comparisons to other specific cases, we can generalize a bit. Cases like Andrew's, where you have an intelligent, seemingly well-adjusted person who just vanishes without a trace, they often become deeply ingrained in public consciousness, almost national folklore sometimes. They tap into a universal primal fear. The idea that a loved one, especially a child, can simply cease to exist in the world. They challenge our understanding of security, the predictability of life, the very fabric of reality. It's that it could happen to anyone fear. The unsettling randomness of it all and the lack of resolution. That's what makes it so resonant. And it ensures its enduring place in our minds. It leaves this unresolved narrative that people instinctively continue to try and solve, even years down the line.
Okay, so let's try to evaluate the plausibility of each of these core theories now, having laid them out in detail. For you, the listener, try weighing these possibilities in your mind. Consider all the nuances we've discussed. Take the voluntary disappearance theory, for instance. We've detailed his character, the family's strong belief he wasn't rebellious. But then you have the practicalities, leaving his wallet, keys, coat behind. And coupled with that absolute profound silence after arriving in London, does that truly sound like someone planning to start a new life independently, or does it point towards something else entirely?
Well, from a practical and psychological standpoint, it makes a purely voluntary, independent running away scenario seem less straightforward, less likely perhaps than it might initially appear. While it's often the first thought when a teenager disappears, the specific logistical details Andrew left behind, combined with the complete silence for over a decade and a half, they strongly suggest that if it was voluntary, he was either remarkably ill-prepared in its execution, or he immediately ran into some unforeseen circumstance that irrevocably stopped any further contact. The immense difficulties of starting and sustaining a new life without essentials like ID, ongoing income beyond that first 200 pounds, and without any communication with anyone he knew, they are nearly insurmountable. It really strains credulity to believe he could maintain such a complete ghosting without any trace or contact in our modern connected world.
And what about the online influence or criminal involvement theories? That baffling absolute lack of any trace or communication that really does lend significant weight to the possibilities of external malevolent influence or an unfortunate, maybe even planned encounter in a bustling, anonymous city like London, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That total uninterrupted silence is perhaps the most chilling and you could argue the most compelling piece of evidence suggesting external factors were involved. If he ran away voluntarily, even if he didn't want to go home, it just seems highly improbable he wouldn't have reached out to anyone, a friend, an online contact, anyone at all in over 16 years. The fact that he just ceased to exist from a communication standpoint makes the idea of an external party much more plausible for many investigators and the public. Whether that was through a long-term grooming effort culminating in his trip, or through a direct abduction or exploitation right after he arrived. London's sheer scale and anonymity, particularly around a busy hub like King's Cross, unfortunately provides a perfect cover for such dark possibilities. A place where a person can, sadly, be absorbed into the vastness of the city without immediate notice.
Then there's the accidental death theory. Always a possibility in cases like this where someone might wander into a dangerous situation. But the enduring mystery of nobody ever being found, after all these years, despite extensive searches and just the general density of London, that's incredibly hard to reconcile, isn't it?
Indeed. While accidents tragically happen, and the scale of London could theoretically conceal a tragedy for a time, the complete absence of any discovery, no body, no personal effects turning up somewhere, no hospital records indicating an unknown trauma victim matching his description, no eventual identification for over a decade and a half is highly unusual, almost statistically improbable, you might say. It would require either a truly remote and undiscoverable location for the body within the urban sprawl, which seems unlikely, or, more darkly, a deliberate and remarkably effective concealment by someone else. This makes it a less immediately satisfying explanation than scenarios involving another party actively involved in his disappearance or potentially the disposal of remains. It would mean he essentially vanished into thin air, leaving no physical imprint, which is incredibly rare even in the largest cities.
This case has become almost a national legend in the UK, hasn't it? A real touchstone in discussions about missing people. What is it that makes an unsolved case like Andrew's transcend local news and become something so endearingly etched in the public consciousness?
It's the raw emotional impact, I think. The human element of profound, agonizing uncertainty. A single unsolved case like Andrew's, it becomes a national legend, a persistent source of fascination and concern for over a decade, because it taps into several universal fears and hopes. This story, it serves as a powerful meditation on the heartbreaking reality that a child's disappearance has become a decades-long mystery. It represents the ultimate fear for any parent, losing a child with no explanation, no closure at all. It also highlights the enduring hope that they may still be alive, even against overwhelming odds. A hope that keeps the story alive in the hearts of his family, and for those who follow the case closely. The very thought that a child can just vanish into thin air, defying all logic, all conventional understanding, it's terrifying and deeply unsettling for everyone.
And through all of this, his family's relentless fight, their unwavering commitment to finding answers, has been a constant visible presence.
Their relentless efforts are a powerful testament, truly, to the enduring, unbreakable power of familial love and determination. It's a story of a parent's love and a relentless fight against the system they believe failed them, or at least a system that struggled and continues to struggle to provide answers. They are the unwavering constant in this shifting landscape of theories, fading leads, new technologies. Their determination to find answers for Andrew is just unwavering. Their public presence, their persistent appeals, they've been instrumental in keeping this case alive in the public eye, preventing it from simply fading into the background like so many cold cases sadly do.
It's also a case that really highlights the transformative role of the internet and social media, sometimes chaotic, maybe, but ultimately crucial in keeping these cold cases alive and relevant.
Absolutely. Digital platforms have played a truly crucial role in keeping Andrew's case in the public consciousness. They allow for continuous discussion, renewed interest, a constant flow of information, and, yes, speculation. They allow new theories, however speculative they might be, and potential leads, however minor, to emerge and circulate over the years, far beyond that initial intense media cycle after he first disappeared. This highlights the collective effort, albeit sometimes chaotic and speculative, as you say, of the public in trying to unravel these mysteries. It provides a constant forum for discussion, for remembering Andrew, for sharing information that might one day, however unlikely it seems now, lead to a breakthrough. It really demonstrates the power of collective remembrance in the face of the unknown.
Yet, despite all this collective effort, all the advancements in technology since 2007, and that enduring hope, the core enigma remains completely intact. We are just left with these conflicting threads of evidence.
Yes, that's the heart of it, isn't it? The profound, unsettling core of the Andrew Gosden case. It boils down to these conflicting threads of evidence. On one hand, you have the seemingly deliberate actions withdrawing the money, the one-way tickets suggesting a planned, maybe voluntary disappearance. On the other hand, his character, the items he left behind, and that absolute deafening silence strongly suggest foul play or some unforeseen tragic event that prevented him from ever making contact again. It's this persistent struggle between the family's desperate, long fight for answers and what could be a silent truth that was buried for decades. It's sobering thought, really, that the ultimate truth of what happened to Andrew Gosden may be forever lost to time. Yet his story and his family's tireless pursuit of justice and answers, that will resonate forever. It serves as a powerful, tragic testament to hope in the face of the truly unknown.
The vanishing of Andrew Gosden remains a profound mystery that has lingered for over a decade now. It's a case where every piece of information seems to just lead to more questions rather than concrete answers, challenging our very understanding of how someone can simply disappear.
And that, ultimately, is its enduring power, isn't it? It leaves us contemplating the nature of truth itself when the threads of evidence are so tangled, so contradictory, and the silence is just so absolute. It forces us to confront the terrifying fragility of certainty in a world that often demands neat conclusions.
What do you think happened to Andrew Gosden? Do you believe the foul play theories hold the most weight, or is there another explanation that feels more plausible to you, given all the perplexing details? Join the conversation on our social media platforms using hashtag Threads of Truth and hashtag Andrew Gosden. Next time on Threads of Truth, we examine the baffling death of Ray Rivera, a case that begins with a hole in a hotel roof and spirals into a web of unanswered questions. Thank you for joining us for this unraveling of a complex truth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review for Threads of Truth wherever you listen. Your support helps us continue to shed light on these unsolved cases and search for the truth one thread at a time.